Okay, good morning, students. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so in my last class, I think we had completed our discussion on the landforms. So in today's class, we shall start our discussion on the new aspect of the drainage patterns. So as you know, water created landforms, sometimes what they do is they create some own ways of movement of water. Okay, the streams that run, they create they move in their own pattern. Okay, so those are called as a drainage patterns. So you know that the drainage or watershed is defined as a boundary which separates the flow of water between one area to another area. Okay, so watershed or water divide is one where it is a typically marked boundary. It's not a typically marked boundary, but it is a boundary which separates the flow of water between one area and the another. Now, Tunga and Bhadra, both of them run parallel, okay, but they meet at Kudli. Okay, so the boundary of Bhadra is different and boundary of Tunga is different. Okay, so but when they meet together in Kudli, they become one boundary. They become one. Okay, so until and unless they join into mainstream, they run in two separate streams. Okay, so that boundaries which are marked, which separates the flow of the water between two boundaries is called as a watershed or water divide. Okay, normally this watershed or water divide is very clear in hill areas, because in hill areas what happens is it runs through its own streams or one its own parallel tributaries. Okay, so in plain areas it is very difficult to find a watershed or water divide. Okay, only in the hilly terrains you can find these watersheds. Okay, so why it is being done? It is result of the three forms of erosions. Okay, sheet erosion and the river rill erosion. Okay, so in sheet erosion what happens is, along the slope of a mountain, when the rainfall starts, okay, when rainfall starts, it covers the entire slope of the area. Okay, all along from the top of the hill up to the foothill of the mountain, the water flows through a known slope or known slopes. Okay, so that is called as a sheet erosion, wherein the entire column or the area is being running through the water. Okay, so when in gully erosion what happens is, water action is non-uniformly distributed or ununiformly distributed or unevenly distributed, that is not evenly distributed. Okay, so in sheet erosion what happens is, it usually happens in a evenly distribution area, but in a gully erosion the distribution of the water is not uniform, it is unevenly distributed, it is not distributed very commonly. So in a rill erosion what happens is, water action is very clearly or evenly distributed. So this gully erosion and rill erosion can be seen in the parts of the Kudremukh. Okay, if you have visited the Gangamula and the Varahamula, so you might have seen this gully erosion and the rill erosion. Okay, on the top of the Gangamula you can see the water action is unevenly distributed. It assumes the gully erosion. As it descends, it runs towards the parts of this Hornado. When you reach the Hornado you can find the Badra river. Okay, so there all you can see the rill erosion, that is water action is very evenly distributed. Okay, so that is how you can differentiate both of them. Okay, so what is a river? It is a large stream of water flowing through an area. Okay, so what is a drainage? Drainage is discharge of water through a system of natural streams. Okay, so the discharge of water through a system of natural streams, it occurs, is called as a drainage. And what is a drainage basin? So it is a unit area which is drained by a single river system. Each rivers have its own character. Clear? So coming to the next, drainage basin. You can see this actually the demarcation of what we have done in the red color forms a drainage basin. Okay, so this is one of the master stream. Okay, you can see the tributaries and all along parallelly running towards them. Okay, there are certain tributaries which cuts across and run parallel. Okay, some may run even perpendicular also. Initially they run in perpendicularly and then they run parallelly. Okay, so all of them have their own tributaries. All of them do have their own tributaries. Okay, you can see this is the place where the rivers starts to originate. Okay, so all of them join together. Okay, so these are the mountain from where the rivers originate, having their own small tributaries. Okay, and then finally they join the main stream or master stream and then joins into another big stream. Okay, so drainage basin is that which is used to describe the catchment area. Okay, so the drainage basin means catchment area, catchment basin, drainage area, river basin, water basin, all these are called as a drainage basins itself. Okay, so the drainage basin always includes both the streams and the rivers and the land surface. All of them together are called as a drainage basins, which includes streams, rivers, and also the land surface through which it runs. Okay, so the drainage basin, how it acts? It acts as a funnel by collecting all the water within the area covered by the basin and channeling it to a single point. See, it acts as a funnel wherein you can find you know the function of funnel. Okay, whenever you drop in the water, it collects all the water and lets into the container. Similarly, what happens in a drainage basin, it collects all the water and then it lets into the container of the land surface. Okay, so that portion that is marked in the red color is usually attributed to as the drainage basin. Okay, so coming to the drainage divide, so it is adjacent drainage basins are separated from one another by drainage divides. Okay, so two watersheds that is running parallelly are always called as a drainage divides. This is drainage divide 1 and drainage divide 2, wherein two streams will be running parallel to one another. Okay, so it is usually a high ridge or a high platform. This Tunga and Bhadra can be called as a drainage divide itself. Okay, Bhadra has got its own catchment and Tunga has got its own catchment. Okay, even though the rainfall is very high in parts of Tunga, Bhadra dam will not be filled up. Okay, so if the rainfall is heavy in Bhadra basin, then Tunga dam will not be filled up. Okay, both of them has got its own different catchment areas. Okay, so that is called as a drainage divide. Okay, both of them are adjacent to one another. They run parallel to one another till Kudli, but still they have got their own catchment areas. They have got their own basins. They have got their own basin characteristics. Okay, so it is conspicuous in the case of youthful topography, like in the Himalayas, and it is not well marked in plains. Okay, so what happens is the watershed is very unknown in the youthful topography, like in the Himalayas. Okay, the water also runs through three important features: youth, matured, and old stage. Okay, so in the youth stage you cannot find the river, okay, very easily, but in matured stage you can find them, but it is not well planed. Okay, but in the old stage it happens in that way. The water starts to roll over once again and again. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the drainage divides. So what is the difference between a basin and a watershed? Both river basins and the watersheds are the areas of land that drain to a particular water body. Okay, both the river basins and the watersheds are the areas of land which run into a particular water body. That particular water body may be a lake, it may be a stream, or it may be a river, or it may be a estuary also. Okay, it always runs into a particular water body. Okay, so in a river basin, all the water drains to a large river. The term watershed is used to describe a smaller area of land that drains to a smaller stream, lake, or wetlands. Okay, so there are many smaller watersheds within the river basin, like watershed of Yamuna plus watershed of Chambal, watershed of Gandak, gives us the drainage basin of Ganges. Okay, so it comprises of Yamuna, Chambal, Gandak, all these rivers, small rivers or the watersheds, they combine together to form a basin of Ganga. Okay, so coming to the drainage patterns, so drainage patterns are the patterns that are based on the shape and formation of river patterns. There are different drainage patterns. Okay, so in simple, it is that which is assumed by the rivers, which is assumed by the running rivers. So you can see how different patterns are being found by the running rivers. Okay, so first one is your discordant drainage pattern. So discordant drainage pattern is drainage pattern where if it does not correlate to the topography or topology, that is surface features and the geology. Okay, that is geological features that is based on both endogenetic movements and the exogenetic movements of the area. So in simple words, if you have to define, it is that the river follows its own initial path irrespective of changes in the topography. Whatever the changes in the land surface, whatever the changes in the area, land area, but the water always flows in its own initial path. Okay, so such ones are called as a discordant drainage patterns. Okay, in discordant drainage pattern, what happens is the water always flows its own path. If there is any change in the topography also, the water will not take the change that has been assumed by the topography, but it will be running in its own initial path. Okay, so this discordant drainage patterns are classified into two main types, that is antecedent and superimposed. Okay, antecedent. What is antecedent or inconsequent drainages? It is a part of the river slope and the surrounding area which gets uplifted and the river sticks to its original slope. Okay, cutting through the lifted portion like the saw. Okay, vertical erosion or the vertical down cutting. You can see the saw. You use the saw for the cutting of the wood, is it not? Similarly, what happens is in the antecedent drainages, the water, what happens is surrounding area gets uplifted and the river sticks to its original slope. Okay, like the gorges. Example in India is this Indus, the Satluj, Brahmaputra, and the other Himalayan rivers that are older than the Himalayas themselves. Okay, Himalayas are newly formed mountains compared to the rivers. Okay, so those are called as the antecedent rivers or the antecedent drainages. Okay, superimposed or the superinduced drainages are the ones where it is formed due to the changes in the topography or the geology. Okay, when river is flowing over a softer rock, okay, so softer rock gets eroded as it reaches the harder rock, but it continues to follow the initial slope itself. So that time what happens is both of them do not have the no relationship between the harder rock bed. Okay, so this type of bed drainage is called a superimposed drainage, which means one is imposed on the another one. Okay, initially the water will be flowing on a soft basins, soft rocks. Okay, soft rocks due to erosion, they get eroded by the movement of water, it gets eroded. Okay, so when the erosion starts to take place, that erosion reaches the harder rock. Okay, once it reaches the harder rock, still the harder rock is not being eroded, but the river is flowing in its own initial direction. When it was flowing in the softer rocks, the same direction is being assumed by the water when it is flowing through the harder rocks also. Okay, such types are called as a superimposed drainage. Okay, so usually these drainage patterns are the dendritic trellis etc. are formed by the strongly influenced by the hardness and the softness of the rock patterns and the patterns of faults and fractures. Okay, so they are also make part for the upper geological structure and the lower geological structure. Okay, so the stream has got enough erosive power, it cuts its way through the any kind of bedrocks. Coming to the examples are the Damodar River, the Suvarnareka of Jamshedpur, the Chambal and the Banas of the rivers of the flowing at the Reva plateau are very good examples of the superimposed drainages. Okay, and the rivers of the eastern USA and the southern France also are a good examples for the superimposed drainages. Okay, so in simple words, what happens is the river flow becomes independent of the present topography. It flows in its initial path without being influenced by the changing topography. Such is called as a superimposed drainage patterns. Okay, coming to the genetic classification of the streams, it is the first type of the streams to be the consequent rivers and the subsequent rivers. Okay, consequent rivers are the ones which are the first type, which are streams that are being developed over a area. Okay, so when we classify these streams in genetically, consequent and subsequent are the two important ones. Consequent rivers are the ones that are first type of streams to be developed over a area. The rivers follow a general direction of slope, are known as the consequent rivers. So most of the rivers of the peninsular India are consequent, like your Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, which descend from the Western Ghats and flow into Bay of Bengal. Okay, so subsequent rivers are the ones wherein a tributary stream which is eroded along a underlying belt of a non-resistant rock after the main drainage pattern. Okay, so eroded only in the soft rock regions. So what happens in subsequent rivers is that the streams will usually be flowing, but the softer rocks gets eroded and they reach the harder rocks. Okay, so the Chambal, the Sindh, the Ken, Betwa, Tons, and the Son rivers meet the Yamuna and the Ganges at the right angles. So they are the subsequent drainage of the Ganga drainage systems. So these rivers or these streams of the Chambal, Sindh, Ken, Betwa, Tons, and so on have generated after the original stream, that is Ganga and Yamuna. Okay, so Ganga and Yamuna have already been developed. So these streams have developed after the formation of these rivers. Okay, so that's why they are called as a subsequent rivers. Okay. So coming to the drainage patterns, so drainage patterns we shall continue in the next class. Okay. So if you have got any questions, you can ask me now. If there is no questions, we can continue discussion next class. Drop in your attendances.